Hi team, Coach Alexa here. Starting to wrap up now the series that I've been doing on keeping running simple and some of the pros and cons of data and tech when it comes to running specifically. So today I wanted to touch on two separate but somewhat related concepts, and one of which came up again on a conversation I had with one of my wonderful one-to-one runners earlier today, and that is Garmin. I'm afraid I'm looking specifically at you and your use of the word unproductive as a training status at the end of some people's runs. Firstly, really bad choice of word there. There is no such thing as an unproductive training session. Going out and doing something is always going to be a much better productive use of your time than, for example, sitting on the sofa and scrolling social media. It is going to have had a positive effect on your fitness. It is going to have had a positive medium to longer term impact on your overall health and well-being, and it is going to have had a positive impact on your brain and your mental health. So quite how you can term that as unproductive, I do not know. And if I had one running coach related wish, or three running coach related wish, I might save a couple for later. Number one would be for Garmin to change their terminology there. The second thing to bear in mind is that this unproductive, productive, whatever they want to call it, is coming off an algorithm, and that algorithm is only as good as what it's the weightings, the different factors in your training have been given. And my certain experience with runners that I work with, and also from a bit of digging into what they take into account and how they weight that algorithm, is that it massively prefers speed work to endurance work. So if I'm working with somebody where I'm giving them a decent slice of speed work each week because they're looking on improving their 5k time, for example, that the Garmin algorithm will massively prefer that sort of training to, say, a big endurance based load for training for an ultra marathon where you're running long and slow much more of the time. They seem to have assigned far more value to the speed work than the endurance work, which is daft because endurance is the key to all distances over about the mile anyway. That's always going to be the most important aspect of your training, regardless of which endurance distance you're doing. It's still an endurance distance, and that's everything from the mile up. And also, if you're training for an ultra marathon, you're not going to be doing crazy amounts of speed work, are you? That'd be a bit daft. Anyway, so that's a couple of different reasons why you should ignore Garmin when it's telling you you're unproductive, or even when it's telling you you're productive, to be quite honest. I know it's easier said than done, and say very bad choice of terminology on the Garmin's part there. Sort of similar but not quite similar is an interesting study that was done a few years ago on exercise-based social media and its impact on the runners, the cyclists, etc. that use it. And they didn't name this in the study, but let's be honest, they're talking about you, Strava. Now, the downside of the Strava platform, yes, it's great for connecting people and, creating that sense of community with the groups and stuff. But the downside for me is that it rewards pace again. So it's giving you the little stars and the little badges for, oh, you ran your fastest mile in that session today, or your fastest 5k, and your fastest half marathon in that long run. It rewards pace. It doesn't really reward endurance, particularly bringing out that competitive nature, which sits within most of us, doesn't it, around the fastest segment times in your local area and wanting to claim back the place on the leaderboard of that fastest segment time. Now, the vast majority of the time, they're not goals which are going to be helpful for your training. The goal for your training is to do each specific run, which will have a specific training goal and reasoning behind it at the right pace and effort level for you to get the best training benefit out of it for you. The chances of that aligning with getting a good segment time are slim to zero. So, in the same way that we don't want to be racing too often, you're effectively kind of trying to race to get onto these leaderboards with just your training runs, when really you'd get far more benefit and value out of them from just sticking to the goals of that training session itself, not what Strava's trying to gamify you to get you to do. This study that I mentioned highlighted quite a high correlation between Strava use and overtraining related injuries for exactly that reason. It encourages to run too fast in more of our sessions when we shouldn't be having pace as a goal. For example, the long run. The only thing you can do wrong on a long run really most of the time is run it too fast, and it encourages us to not take recovery weeks and rest days, for example, as well as seriously as we should be. So a couple of, I guess, more specific examples of there about why just being in your own bubble, focusing on your training that's specific to you, is the best way of getting results. We are, I guess, almost as a society, just outside of sport as well, we're conducting a massive experiment on ourselves, aren't we, on this use of huge amounts of data and tracking and information and the use of social media and comparing ourselves with each other all the time, and more evidence coming out, not just in sport but in other areas of life, that it's got some downsides that we just need to be aware of. So a couple of those to think about from the perspective of running, at least.